Chinese banks stop doing business with Russia, and Russia pretends it's not mad. China is facing a population crisis, but you won't learn about that in school. And the Philippines Coast Guard nearly gets hit by Chinese ships, acting like idiots. Then more on this week's China News headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Surfshark. Whenever you go online, you should be using a VPN like Surfshark to cover your tracks and protect your identity. I'll tell you more at the end. This month marks 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine. Man, these past 2 years have been the longest 8 years of my life. It's also been 2 years since this meeting, where Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping met and announced what they called a no-limits partnership. Well, sadly, that beautiful bromance is showing some cracks. An important Chinese bank has decided to cut ties to Russian importers. Man, I hate seeing friendships ruined over money. So pay me back the $5 you owe me, Bruce. That Chinese bank is called Chozhou Commercial Bank. It's a bank often used by Russian and Belarusian companies that import and export goods. But in December, U.S. President Biden issued an executive order that tightened sanctions on all financial institutions that do business with Russia. You know, because of the whole Ukraine invasion thingy. That's why Chozhou Commercial Bank and several other Chinese and Hong Kong banks have decided, you know what, maybe it's not worth working with Russia. That has to sting for Russia to hear that China's uncomfortable doing business with them. Russia reacted to these Chinese bank pullouts by denying that Russian businesses were experiencing any problems settling payments with neighboring China. The Russian deputy foreign minister said, no, we don't have such an issue. A couple of Chinese banks refrained so far as a precaution over fears to be sanctioned, but we are confident that this problem will be solved. And I, for one, believe the Russian government when they say they don't have an issue. It's just like how in January 2022, Russia told the U.S. they weren't planning to invade Ukraine. And looking back, I believe it. If Russia had a proper plan to invade Ukraine, it probably wouldn't have devolved into this embarrassing 2-year war of attrition. Meanwhile, the EU is proposing curbs on 3 Chinese firms for aiding Russia. It's just a proposal, but if it gets adopted, it would mark the first time the EU has put any sanctions on Chinese companies since the war started. Sure, it's way less than the US is doing to stand up to China, but at least it shows that Europe is starting to recognize that yes, China is supporting Russia's Ukraine invasion. And it's hard to blame them for taking so long. I mean, it hurt like heck when my wisdom teeth came in, so I can't imagine how painful it is for the EU to finally be growing a spine. Despite the kerfluffle over banking and other sanctions, there's still hope for Putin and Xi. Because according to the Chinese ambassador to Russia, Xi Jinping and Putin will have several meetings this year, including a visit to China. I hope they get in some good bro time. They'll need it, because recently Putin's been angry with Xi, and Chinese nationalists are calling for a Russian city to be returned to China. More on that in tomorrow's episode. In the meantime, dangerous maneuvers by Chinese ships could spark a war with the Philippines. More on that after the break. Welcome back. Teachers in China are facing an uncertain future because birth rates are falling so much there could be 1.9 million surplus teachers by 2035, which for those of you who stopped counting years when COVID began, is only 11 years from now. The reason China's birth rates are dropping are complex. One factor is the CCP's one-child policy that was in place for nearly 40 years. So people got used to having only one kid. That policy ended in 2016, but people still didn't seem to want to make more babies. A weak economy and dismal political future aren't exactly encouraging Chinese people to create big families. Also, this face isn't exactly an aphrodisiac. Sure, being ruled by the CCP would make me want to jump under the covers, but only to hide. Anyway, it's not just the 1.9 million jobless teachers who will be affected. China is undergoing a demographic transition that has far-reaching implications, including slower economic growth and a strained social security system. You thought prospects for the social security system in America are bad? China is about to have it so much worse. Which is weird because I thought providing a form of social security was kind of communism's whole thing. If they can't provide that, why, it seemed like it doesn't work. which would be preposterous. Has there ever been an example of communism failing? Seems like every last instance of it in history has always been a resounding success. Speaking of America, more than 150 million Americans, mostly young people, are using TikTok. You know, the social media company whose parent company is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party? Just over a year ago, President Biden approved a ban on using TikTok on all federal government phones, which makes sense because also around that time, TikTok admitted to spying on US users. In that case, specifically on journalists. But with all the data TikTok collects, it could be spying on anyone and potentially sending that data to China. So it came as a bit of a surprise when I saw this. Yes, the Biden 2024 presidential campaign has launched an official TikTok account. What is he doing? The only way this is justifiable is if Biden is doing this to destroy TikTok, because he knows the quickest way to make something uncool is by having your grandparents get in on it. Now, I might be thinking being on TikTok is a bit hypocritical for Biden. But, gotta reach those youngsters. If it means sacrificing your own principles to get those votes, then what were we talking about? The Philippines and the U.S. held a joint patrol in the South China Sea this past week. The idea was a show of strength against China. The Philippines has seen China as a threat for many years. The previous president tried to get closer with China, hoping that it would placate them. It didn't work, especially after nearly all of China's promises fell through. The current president switched tactics. He's been deepening ties with the U.S. instead, hoping that this show of strength will deter Chinese aggression. But the Philippines getting closer with the U.S. hasn't seemed to stop China, because just 2 days after that joint patrol started, the Philippine Coast Guard reported that Chinese vessels made dangerous maneuvers. Honestly, we've heard this so often that China might as well start naming all their ships the SS Dangerous Maneuvers. The Philippine Coast Guard ship was patrolling near the Scarborough Shoal, an important spot for local fishermen. And Chinese ships kept messing with them in 4 different instances. The Philippines released footage of some of these incidents. Here you can see how the Chinese ship cuts right in front of the Philippines one. This is very unsafe. It's just a few yards away from a serious accident. And just one accident could spark a war. And cutting someone off at 4 miles an hour has to be the absolute dumbest reason to spark a war. Well, besides not paying back the $5 you owe me, Bruce. Now there's a video I want to show you about communist infiltration in the US. But first, this episode is sponsored by Surfshark. When you go online, everything you do is potentially compromised unless you're taking active steps to protect yourself. No matter where you live, no matter what you do online, you should always be keeping your internet activity private with a VPN like Surfshark, especially when you're doing things like logging into your bank account or credit card online. If you ever use shared Wi-Fi, you're in danger. Even low-rent hackers can steal your password without you even knowing it. And when you travel, especially overseas, you might need a VPN that makes it look like you're in your home country just to log into your accounts. So it saves a huge potential hassle. And you can install it on as many devices as you want, even on your Amazon Fire Stick. If you want to make it look like you're logged in from a different country so you can access all the good Netflix shows that are geo-blocked. Seriously, check out Surfshark. Go to surfshark.com/uncensored to get up to 3 additional months for free. That's surfshark.com/uncensored and use the code uncensored. The link is in the description. So, one of the ways communists take over a society is by destroying its culture and history, particularly its heroes. This is happening in the US. Statues of George Washington have been defaced, but there's also a new game out called Kill the Justice League. What does it mean when Superman, Mr. Truth, Justice, and the American Way, turns evil and criminals have to kill him? I talk about all this in the latest episode of my new show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming. Check it out and let me know what you think. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.